All right, I was hoping to do a walkthrough of some of the stuff that Sanders talked about in his economic proposal, but the way this usually works is that there's some event that is out of my control or that occurs that just makes me say, you know what, let's throw that to the wayside for a day or two or possibly forever to discuss something else. About 3 months ago, I did a stream and it was called "It Can Only Get Worse," and it was right after I had been suspended on Twitter um, for reasons that they never told me, and that's how these websites work. They're all it's governing by mystery, basically. Um, and I want to run down a couple of events and just sort of go from there, and then we can wrap this up, and I can head on my way. So this is a shampoo bottle. You can see that it is transparent. Now, what does transparent mean? Some people have a seemingly difficult time with words such as that. It means that when you look at this bottle, you can see how much is left in it or if there's any in there at all. So when you see it, you can tell and know that it is still of some use via the fact that there is still some of its contents inside. Now, I had a person who decided to, for whatever reason, mess around with a this bathroom where I had stored this in there, uh, and I thought nothing of it because they were just getting rid of some stuff that actually was old that wasn't being used, whatever. But usually, when you can tell, let me say a little mark, something is old or otherwise not being currently used, you can see the fact that it doesn't have anything inside of it. It's got some expiration date that's passed. There's a lot of indicators of that. So imagine my surprise when I come back in there the next day and that bottle that you were just showed disappears. Um, I have to go and replace it and whatnot. And I say to this person, why did you throw out something that you could look inside and see still had contents in it? And by all intents and purposes, was still in good use because this person was well aware of the fact that I use that, 3 times a week, recurringly. And they couldn't give an answer. They just kept saying, I don't know why I did that. I have no idea. And it was the strangest thing in the world because if I saw something that I could look inside and see the contents were still there, let me slow down, boy. Uh, I would have no reason unless I just didn't care and was trying to get rid of everything to throw that away. So I get another one, but the difference here now is that because these things all kind of what's really good about them is they tend to last a while. So I can have one of those for maybe 2, 3, 4 months and still have some of left inside after that period. You really don't have to replace that often. And the one they threw away actually had a bunch still left in there to where I probably would have been good for another 2 months, if not longer. So I was kind of pissed off because this is anytime you buy something and you can't use or get the most usage out of it because of something that someone else did, I think people can get some common sense behind that. So I get another one, but the difference is that I don't put it back in there. I always take it out with me. And yesterday, and I brought this up during the start of yesterday's stream, and Envoy might remember this. I was sitting here. Now, one time in the past, I'd actually had because that bottle comes in a what is it? Sort of a paper type material. So those little like those boxes that are really thin and can kind of tear easily if you apply some liquid to them. They come in those. And one day I was sitting here with it, and it just started to have it come out or seep through the packaging. And I didn't think much of it because I said, a lot of times you accidentally squeeze something, whatever, it happens. And I'm sitting here yesterday, and all of a sudden I see that it's spilled over into the bed where I placed it before many different times. With it being closed inside the packaging. It really surprised me because it was the first instance of it bleeding through a series of covers and whatnot. So I change them. I go and get this settled and whatnot, clean up after it. But all I'm thinking to myself as I'm changing it and as I'm rushing to get sheets and attempting to, I guess, alleviate the circumstances that if that person never threw that bottle out, I would have never stopped because I always in the past left that in there because it was just, use it to shower, and the shower's right there. So, there was no reason not to keep it in that place. But I said to myself, if this person hadn't have thrown that out, that transparent ball that they could see through and view and know was still of good use, I would have never stopped keeping it in there. And this whole circumstance literally would have never happened because I never used to take those out of there before that. Before, my trust in that particular place of putting it was, I guess, severed through what someone else did. But going back to the title of how, it seems nothing gets better or worse or whatever. Um, Okay, the nerve of people nowadays. Yeah, it was really annoying, but that's just a little thread of stuff. I'm just sitting here this morning after waking up because I said before a lot of times I go to sleep, I pass out, and I noticed there's like a in my chair there's like a feeling of something, like how do I explain this? There's a feeling I don't usually get from sitting there, but it's not so discomforting that I really take any immediate alarm. um I get up after to go do something, and I realize there's a piece of I don't know what it was some kind of maybe like a candy or something, and it's really weird because when you sit on something, generally you assume, oh, I must have it on my backside, whatever. Nothing there. So I take a my nail and try to clip it off there. And I said, what? Where did this come from? Because I don't recognize this from anything that I've eaten, and I don't think anyone would come in here and eat something while sitting here for no reason. So it literally just appears out of the blue. Um, Someone made a comedic joke as I went to well, I'll explain it. So as I'm after cleaning that up, I go into the bathroom to brush my teeth as I usually do. Take care of my pearly whites and all that stuff. Um, and as I'm brushing, I'm thinking about this joke that somebody made, and I am, just going back and forth, whatever. And I start kind of laughing, so I hit the backside of like my gum or whatever, and it reminds me of how I've actually had several mornings where I've woken up with Ruben saying what happened. Well, I'm trying to explain, Ruben. Don't worry, you're getting your documentary this weekend. You can keep your pitchfork somewhere else for the week. Um, but I thought about the different times I've woken up and bitten my gum for some reason, or woken up with the gum for whatever reason was injured, and it's the craziest thing in the world because you can wake up and like have. I mean, I've sat there just scratching my head. I was like, how the hell did why did my gum start hurting? What did I do to where this thing just is in constant pain? Like, if you put your tongue in the back, right around here, and then you can feel like a burning sensation from the open wound. I was like, where the hell? Because I'll wake up and it will be a day after, no kind of injury whatsoever. And that's really creepy to me because it means my tooth will bite into that part and I have no control over it because I'm not conscious when I sleep. So it just is like a recurring thing that I have no control over. Let me say hello to Elliot. Always says the documentary that will never come. No, it will. I'll actually get into that later on because I said I wrote out a whole script and I just have to record and get some materials. I will say what I said before, which is that if he had picked a more modern one where there's video, I would have a lot more stuff to use. So because of that, I have to have my voice basically over it. Ruben, he's talking about the Johnson one, not the Nixon one. I know all about Nixon's connections. Believe me. I can even tell you the part about how the older Bush, in his capacity as RNC chair, is the one who asked Nixon to formally resign. Envoy says that happens to me sometimes. I wake up with maybe a cut lip, but that's because my mouth gets dry and I don't apply chapstick before I go to bed. Yeah, but it's the I get what you're saying. I'm talking about your gums on the inside being open from presumably your teeth hitting against them while you sleep, which I've had happen multiple times, and it's really frustrating because I don't know what thing I could do to even prevent that from occurring. So it's really aggravating. VVS, you should have been here on Saturday. We had the romance. It was like we had almost 20 people in here. That was the second highest number of people I've ever had in the stream. You would have enjoyed it. Yeah, apparently Brought Vulture is just now realizing that you know who I am. So it was really comedic. He was like, "Oh, I heard him bring you up in the video." Yeah, we're dancing on tables. No, we were not. How am I gonna dance on a table with him when we're in two different states? Unless we do like one of those live streams where you have it cut in half on the screen, and then we get the same kind of table. There actually is a. I'm not going to bring that up, but there's someone somewhere 10 years ago made a series of comedy routines where they used the same shtick or whatever you would use the term, and they were saying the same thing to crowds in different cities. And I had this one relative who thought that was the most amazing thing ever, and they were so astonished by the editing capabilities that allowed this to be presented. I said they literally took clips from a bunch of different events where he says the exact same thing and just stuck them all next to each other. I could do that with my computer right now. I could get clips of different people saying, I don't know, outrageous, and have them all just play at once or play together or back to back. It's not really anything that sophisticated, but they thought that was the most amazing thing ever. Also on a monetary thing, because I said before, if someone actually thinks that I do this for cash, they're not exactly the sharpest tool in the shed. So I had a person who I met back in, I think, March or April. We got along very well. They are someone that supported me in a lot of different ways. No, now Mirage hasn't come back, Ruben. Like I said, I was planning on talking about Sanders's economic plan so I can get my 10 views, but I changed course. I'll probably make an upload about it tomorrow because I'm gonna cancel this other thing I record over the weekend because it's a little redundant with something else that I had intended. But going back to what I was saying, like, yeah, oh boy, you know how they are, man. That's why when James brought up the fact that we had 19 people, I was like, man, he's like, oh my god, the channel is growing. I said, dude, it's the yo-yo. A couple more views this week, few less the next week. Brought to you by the wonderful YouTube algorithm. So, and people deciding to be flaky, but you know how it is. So this person and myself had started speaking back in March or April, the earlier part of this year, and we developed a good rapport. We have a lot of different interests in common. They've mostly been associated with things that I've drawn out versus streams. Although if I do invite them, they usually show up if they can. And they took me by complete surprise when they decided they wanted to be on Patreon, because as I've said before, the idea of having one of those was suggested by Ruben, and I kind of was reluctant until YouTube started basically stealing cash from me and demonetizing every single thing I did. They have if I don't know if anyone else has seen it, but they have a huge list of words where you can't, if you put these words in the title, they automatically demonetize you, and that includes words like Shrek and Dick Cheney, the person's name, certain country names, some really crazy stuff, right? So when he signs up for this, I'm elated because I never tried to encourage him to be involved with anything like that. And it's just like this overall showing of support that was really unexpected. So I go on there, and people. This is what I love about the wonders of the online community. They have this thing where they get upset when you look at something realistically and apply a position that is not positive. So I could make something right now and go, oh my God, this great, wonderful thing happened. And then someone decides to backtrack on it. And I would say, oh yeah, here they go again. And they would go, oh, you're negative. That's why that happened. But I go on Patreon, and literally right as he joins, someone else got off. And I'm like, that is so emblematic of the phrase I use, which is you take one step forward, one step back. And it's so comedic because, as I've said before, a lot of times in the past, I have actually believed a lot of the hype that surrounded just like critiques of whatever I was doing. Like I had people who would say, the reason you have not gotten more views is because you're boring. And so I actually thought that was true for a while. But what happened was a certain person ran for president. You know what I'm talking about. I stuck their name in the title of some of my stuff, and they ended up getting thousands of views in multiple cases. And I was sitting there saying to myself, you can't support something like that where it's a person sitting in front of a camera and talking about a particular topic. And when they talk about something else, they get 20, 30 views, whatever. But if they talk about this one politician, they're getting 1,000 or 800 or some other ungodly number in comparison with the rest of their stuff, and still allow them to be convinced that what they do actually is, of some lower quality than the people around them. Ruben says, put a non-issue topic on the title and thumbnail, like the new Joker movie. Then when the viewers show up, change to the topic that you actually want to talk about. Oh yeah, Ruben, that's what we've done in some cases where we've, just like when I did the shooting stream, I start off talking about the shooting and people ask about this other stuff. And then, it segues into that. But that's why I said that a lot of times people who don't make content don't realize when you pre-record something, you can pick the title afterward. And because you've been allowed the opportunity to experience the whole entirety of whatever you're recording, it's a lot more accurate versus when you do a stream and people are asking all kinds of questions about God knows whatever. It's a lot harder to predict if it's going to stay on that topic or go to something else. So that's why you'll have a stream where it's called, I don't know, person did this, and then 30 minutes in, I'm like, yeah, man, this one broad pissed me off. Because you can't tell, you don't know for sure if it's going to stay on that same topic. Because you can't foresee what people are going to ask, which is, I suppose a good thing. But at the same token, if someone gets pissed off because the topic changed, I'll take the rap for it. Oh my God, you put a misleading title. It's like, no, I had every reason to put that title because when I started streaming, it was about this one subject. So they get mad over everything though. It's not too surprising. Go over to the voice actor thing for a brief moment. I had one who I told, I want you to record all of this stuff by the, I sent them 4 scripts. I said, I'm going to give you a whole month to do these, whatever. And they don't do it on that first day. I get a little annoyed, but I bite my tongue. I'm like this because I do not want to, basically I saw no reason to get pissed off over something that I already expected to happen based off of prior statements that people have made in reference to when they intend to do something. This person actually turns it in not even a full week later, to my happiness. And I said, look, I'm not trying to put you on some rigorous schedule, but if you have a circumstance arise where you cannot send something on a desired date, just say that you can't do it. I'm not a demon. I'm not going to go, oh, you little harlot, you didn't do this thing on the day I wanted. You're fired, or no, because again, there are a lot of things that we don't know for certain just happen, abruptly. I was literally sitting here about 2 weeks ago, and this is the device I record from and I'm recording from now. I have had since November of last year, and all of a sudden the keyboard starts at not the keyboard, excuse me. The keyboard works perfectly fine. The space bar starts acting kind of weird. And you can imagine as someone that likes to write stuff, how this would kind of be a little aggravating. But I said, okay, you know what? This might just be a temporary malfunction. Let me restart the computer, the device, to see if it actually is just acting up for, whatever reason. It hasn't been turned off in a while. Turn it back on, it does the exact same thing. I go look up YouTube videos. Hey, here's how you change your keyboard and make sure to clean it out. So I pull the buttons, or rather the part on top of it, off of it. Yeah, I know that sounds a little confusing. The part on top off, and I take a toothpick and I clean through all these crumbs and whatnot. You gotta understand that this is not something I'm used to, because if the whole rest of the keyboard works except for this one key, I'm kind of not going to be convinced that I was so disgusting with the different foods I ate around this. I think just gradually as time passes, there's wear and tear applied to all kind of different items and whatnot. But I go through here and I clean out this whole thing because I'm trying to go off of the advice of both people who have had this same device in the past, have uploaded videos explaining how to do this. And it's like nothing I do makes a difference. Like it just stays not working, even after literally having every single ounce of a crumb just completely removed. It just wouldn't work. It's and that's kind of the point I've made where it's a lot of this stuff feels so tied together because it's one person applying effort over and over again, and a lot of the circumstances around them not budging no matter what you do. I gave the example of the well, I'm not going I haven't given this example here, but I've spoken about my disdain for a lot of the reaction channels. Not that I hate the people who run them, I don't find the content that they have that appealing. It's someone sitting in front of a camera and uh, staring at something else. So there's a particular one, and again, I don't reference these people's names for two reasons. One, because I don't actually try to get involved in I guess YouTube beefs or whatever. And I also, yeah, Ruben, we're synced up. Oh, James, I know you love them. Those are your favorite, especially when they react to birds and other creatures of nature. So there's a person on here who has a channel where they've reacted to different shows. I'm not going to say who they are, but I go on their Patreon. Now remember, this person's entire content, every single thing they do, is sitting in front of a camera and going, "Oh no, don't do that. Wow, cool. Oh." And I would argue that that's a lot less involved than, let's see, editing, which I've already been shown to do here. Yeah, Megumi, I don't get the appeal either, but this is where we get into the crazy territory. I go on this person's Patreon and I see, I think it was this I think 3,000 people on there. And when I look at this, my mouth just lowers almost to the ground, like something cartoony or of a fictitious expression, because I realized very quickly it's not the fact that this person makes content that someone actually watches and enjoys because it's well made or it's well thought out or it's appealing to you in some engaging type of way. It's because literally the person who runs that channel, every person that I've shown, what they look like, thinks they're hot. So this goes back to what I was saying about how a lot of times when you're a chick, you can coast through stuff and not really end up having to do any type of hard work. Um, and basically being able to get by off of looks alone for pretty much anything and everything. And I know some people will say this is, that you're trying to move two things that have nothing to do together and use it for your own position. But I'm sorry, if I'm looking at a channel where the entire extent of work has to do with someone sitting like this with a little screen on the side and going for 30 or 40 minutes, I'm not going to think that, my position is too far fetched, because I've seen some men who do that and they don't have as much support as this person. And look, it's all right to admit that, in a lot of cases when you're horny and you come online and you see some broad doesn't look half too bad, you want to throw her some pennies. I think it's dumb to do that because you're literally paying someone who will never express any direct interest in you. But that if they want to do that, that's prerogative that of them to they're allowed to do with their funds as they wish. I only despise seeing something like that because I've been fed a narrative for several years now that there is something wrong with what I do or the content that I make that would elicit the lack of attention or not the same level of attention as this other stuff that I've just brought up. And when I see something like that where the person does nothing besides sit in front of a camera watching something somebody else made, it really doesn't. They don't line up. Okay, Ruben says the blasphemous TV guy looks hideous, but still gets thousands of views. Well, that's what I was saying. That there could be people who genuinely like that type of content, but I'm very convinced a good chunk of it is being horny and seeing some attractive broad and then throwing some coins her way. Ruben said, I like edited reaction videos of people reacting to offensive and disturbing videos. I think I've seen that before. There's the channel Top 15s. At least with him, he actually gives you a narrative and a recap, and he adds stuff to there, even if he's using other footage, because he's trying to make the case for why the list is arranged in such a way. So if he had 3,000 people on Patreon or whatever other website, I wouldn't be upset, because that's actually someone who's trying to engage and provoke thought. But you get the point. When I look at that, it actually reminds me of why I don't believe in giving. See, when I talked about, and Megumi remembers this, the Johnny Come Lately, is how the narrative is the man is supposed to earn all this stuff, and then the woman will be attracted to everything he owns, and how for me that's really off-putting, because who the hell wants to break their behind to be some highly successful person and then have some individual who appeals in no particular way to you besides having a vagina show up and try to reap the benefits of what you've done? I said these things like this, where you can have 3,000 people donate to some person on this website just because they look pretty and they stick their face in front of a camera and make all these different expressions while someone else's thing is playing. That, like, stuff such as this is why I don't believe in doing that, because they've gotten enough free rides. I told you about the man that actually impregnated this one idiot broad that we've talked about a couple of times on here, who had paid for a storage unit for her for an entire year and got told off over and over and over again. Just to 2 years later, get put in jail, not for touching this person, in some kind of violent or angry way, but because he suggested that he would. So this guy went from having no criminal record to now having one, which makes it harder for him to get work in a state that already is difficult to get work in. And also is now, like, that's in tandem with the two of them having a child together. Now explain how that was a smart decision or a series of wise moves on either of their part. This person actually said, I think someone actually said on the Saturday stream that was the ultimate cuck. Like, I'm gonna put you in jail and then get knocked up by you. I'm gonna make you go from having no record to being imprisoned on, I guess it was terroristic threats or something. And look, my thing is, because these are adults and they, one that was so scared has a vehicle and multiple people they can stay over at the home of if they actually feel endangered. My level of sympathy is kind of like, it peters off. Ruben says, who here thinks that TV networks pay reactions to react to Dr. Phil episodes? I've been noticing Dr. Phil show gets used for a lot in reaction videos. It'd be funny if I actually get down, like, print out a picture of him and I just put it on the screen back here every time Ruben shows up, I put it back there as a reference to what he just said. Envoy says that the water tastes good. You look like you enjoyed yourself. Well, I usually can drink a single bottle fairly quickly. James says, drunk it fast. Megumi says, Twilight Zone, the very realm we dwell in these times. Hey, imagine if I actually was one of those, I don't mean to change subjects, but imagine if I actually was one of those, like, attempt to be top tier channels where they only read when you give them a super chat. I hate that, because there's this one guy, I'm not going to say what his name is, because again, I'm not trying to direct anybody over to his thing. But basically, a couple of weeks ago, people were making fun of him and they were posting the same sentence or word over and over again, right? So just any demeaning word you can think of, like loser or something like that, or fail or whatever. And it literally the whole chat turned into that word. And it was going on for like 20 or 30 straight minutes. before he told his mods to start deleting what they were writing. You know, if they were spamming the same word over and over. And it was really funny because it was, I think, out of after watching his stuff here and there for maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 months, it was the first time ever I'd seen him react to any comment that was made without giving him cash or being part of a some big person. Like, if you get PewDiePie in your stream, oh my god, it's PewDiePie. So it was, I just thought that was comedic, that the only time you ever saw him respond to comments that were not paid were them spamming some word to mock him for. I mean, I really wish I could have recorded that 20 or 30 straight minutes of the same word being posted over and over again. And this other person was streaming while he was streaming, reacting to his stream. I know that sounds a little redundant, but they were laughing that entire time, every couple of minutes. Oh my god, they're still posting this. God, imagine just 40 or 50 people typing the same word, and on a channel where a guy won't react ever to anything anybody writes unless they give him money, and then he no, James, it was insulting. I don't want to say it because it's a little perverse, but I gave you an example of it. Just any word you can think of as being an insult. So super chat is not an insult. If someone says, "Hey, you're a super chat," you're going to be confused. You're going to say, "Who did I donate to?" Yeah, I was so happy to see Envoy again. He's been disappearing recently, and we actually were going to do a "Where's Envoy" series where we look around YouTube for him. I would love to do that. Have like a "Where's Waldo" book where I actually draw pictures based on that book, and I put the names of various prominent subs on there. Like, where's Dirk? And I'm looking in the book with a magnifying glass, and I got the camera up to the thing. You can see me holding it. Or I draw it on the computer and then I put it on Google Hangouts. One of those two options. I mean, how would that work? I would have the picture and then I would superimpose that person's name over Waldo. So when you found Waldo, you found that person. Well, no, I don't need to know how you look. It's a reference to the premise, the basic premise of Waldo, which is why I gave the example that I did. Yeah, I can't wait for Envoy to put his face on YouTube so we can have 10 people tell him how hideous he is. And then 9 of them are dudes. We don't need any more reaction videos. I actually did say I was planning on doing a reaction video to my own video where I was going to sit there and go for a couple of minutes, like, wow, that person was really informative. I'm so glad they let me steal their entire thing. Ruben says, I've noticed that the Dr. Phil show became popular when the Cash Me Outside girl became viral. No, they're all posting about that. Personally, the only talk show I was ever really big into, I don't even know if I'm using proper grammar anymore. I'm so pissed off, was Steve Wilkos. Because the premise was this former cop who did nothing to ever forward himself and having a talk show, now attempts to be a serious version of Jerry Springer. If I did live by myself, I actually might consider like throwing the chair around if some story was outrageous. Just in reference to that. No, a lot of times you have other people around here, so it's a lot harder to get away with making a bunch of noise. That's why when that person left that comment on, I think it was the upload I had last Thursday, the one about Tulsi, they were like, "Oh, you're just sitting back in your chair, mum." I'm like, dude, I have multiple people here, and I'm trying to record this thing and not disturb them. I'm sorry for being considerate. Yeah, what I should have done was link them to to the Patreon and be like, hey, if you pay whatever amount a month, you can forward me having my own place, my own recording studio. It's like, yeah, I try to speak at a volume that you can still hear. I even adjusted the volume to its max level. So whenever kind of like talking like this, it's because somebody else is here. But that's how these online cats work. They're not really ever attempting to get a circumstance. That person was just pissed off for whatever reason. So I said, because the internet is used by so many people and there's no IQ test for it, and anybody can get on here and write something stupid. You just kind of have to, you can't take a lot of the things that on here that are said seriously. When people hide their face and then say you're ugly, I mean, that by itself speaks to the kind of point that we have here, which is that a lot of times someone says something without there being much merit to it. I mean, should I be offended that I don't look pretty to a man? Just saying. Ruben says a lot of people fake being stupid to agitate others. Oh, I know, and they respond. I didn't know, though. Well, look, I don't dispute, Ruben, that person actually felt that way, but the thing is, if I don't think someone is attractive, whether it's a male or a female, I don't have to write that on their page. I can simply think that to myself. That broad that has the 3,000 Patreon people, I don't find her to be that attractive. She's got a nice, I guess, figure, but that's about it. Everything else is just whatever. And for some reason, she's got that many people on her stuff because, people are really horny and they're trying to beat off to whatever they can. So she's been allowed to fund. That would be an amazing job to have. Just not even actually write anything. Just sit here in this chair, have a little screen right there, watch a show that somebody else made, and go, "Oh man, I hope no one attacks him. Oh no, oh my god!" And the reactions aren't even funny. Whatever. Most famous Twitch girls. I remember I was gonna have this social experiment where I was gonna have this one broad I knew for like 2 or 3 weeks just read scripts that I had written for different news stories, and then the only time I would actually be on the channel would be on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. And the joke was that you would get more views because people are literally so thirsty that they will get entranced by seeing some chick, no matter who it is. Ruben says stroke cosplay models in that category. Well, the thing is, at the very least, with some of them, they make their outfits, so that still is some effort, for example. But with that person I brought up, like their main thing is reaction stuff. And that I just don't understand why we need 3,000 people to back that financially. But whatever, they do what they want to do. It's a really bizarre series of circumstances that allows these people to get away with doing a lot of these things. It's like I can't find one voice actor to replace this other one that hasn't recorded anything since June, but this broad can get 3,000 people to donate for her to sit in front of a camera and that's the kind of era that we're living in. God, and then I love being called lazy. That's my favorite insult. Like the person who has to draw 600 images per episode of their show is so lazy, and edit it and color it and hunt down VAs and negotiate and whatnot. Megumi says, "Hey, it's the Twilight Zone after all." Yeah, but I mean, I wouldn't mind them doing that if I didn't have to sit here and get all these different non-objectionable critiques. Because see, what happens when you don't appeal to the amount of people that you would prefer, you automatically, if you basically ever complain about it, you automatically get accused of doing something wrong. Like it's my fault that YouTube has an algorithm that favors rags like CNN because they're on TV. It's my fault that people would rather, get turned on by seeing someone go versus actually talking about a story. Well, no, it's their attempt to try and bury the any objectionable critique you have of a series of a set of behavior that enables people who are not hardworking, like the person I'm describing here, to get more attention, both in terms of views and financial backing, than those of us that actually try to do something of talent. Like VVS could make a video right now where all he does is stick something in front of the camera. And if it's just him talking about whatever for 20, 30 minutes, he's already done more than that person does, because he's not taking someone else's stuff and he's actually adding something substantive to whatever the hell they're talking about. Because it doesn't go against the status quo. Oh, there's CK. I haven't seen him in a while. I was so worried after Saturday that he would disappear. Well, no, I'm simply saying that I'm not one of these people that thinks you have to do what I do or else it doesn't matter. There are a lot of people who yeah, that was the joke, CK. That it's only been 2 days, so there was no reason to get freaked out. But like I was saying, I'm not one of these people that thinks someone has to do the things I do to function properly as a contributing member of this site. There are a lot of sports channels that I never watch because I don't care about sports, but I believe that the people who claim to be into that should watch them. You know, I've been accused of. I remember this one person 3 years ago. They were like, "Oh, maybe the topics are boring." I'm like, dude, go on TYT, go on any of these networks, and look at, in some cases, over hundreds of thousands of views on that stuff. And don't try to tell me that this is so uninteresting that people in large sets of numbers are not viewing it. But that's how they operate. Any way they can blame the content creator, no accountability for all the other factors, whether it be the people who refuse to watch the stuff, or the algorithm that prevents people from even finding the stuff. But that's why I said it only gets worse, because you crank out content, you do all these different things, and then if the retention is not there, you get accused of having failed in some capacity. And it's just, I mean, I don't understand it. Like, and I even explained this to one of my subs who has been missing in action for the last week or so, where I was talking about how it doesn't bother me to sit in front of a camera for 10 or 20 minutes and only get a couple of views on that, because that's just what I expect from streams. And we've been over the fact that a lot of people generally don't get that many people on streams to begin with. I've seen a channel with 1 million subs only have 1,000 people, and I've seen one with 76,000 get 600 or 5,000 on average. So that's something that is more associated with people's schedules, and if they wish to participate in streams more than anything else. But when you literally have a bunch of people who are going around and trying to justify any and every kind of behavior online, like clicking a button and then disappearing when people actually pump out new stuff, it's really annoying. Okay, Namaraj says, yeah, one of my favorite channels on YouTube has 50K subs, and usually only about 300 people watch the streams. Exactly. That's my point, that it's dependent on how many people want to click and show up, or even can do that to begin with. Yeah, Envoy's one of the special few people that watches streams. He's part of that rare crowd. Let's see. Ruben says a lot of successful YouTube channels use bots and get help from the YouTube algorithm. Yeah, well, I will never do any of those things, because, like I said, with this website as unstable as this one, I'm not going to bother with that. Well, I don't expect to be prioritized over your other stuff. That's why I said that people can always see something. What I try to do in a lot of cases is, if I miss content from someone I've subbed to for a week, I'll just play all of it. So they put out, like, let's say 5, 6, 7 videos, but they're all about maybe 15, 10, 11 minutes a pop or a piece. I'll usually play those in the background while I do something else, or I don't know, if I actually think they're talking about something I'm not entirely that into, I'll put some music on top of it, like an instrumental. It's always something else that can be allowed to have happen. What I always think is funny is you have people who say, "Oh my God, if you put music on this, you won't remember what the person said." I'm like, well, people put music on top of when people are speaking in shows and movies, and they seem to remember lines from those just fine. Envoy says, "Yeah, it's crazy. People try to buy popularity, and yeah, on a website where you can literally go from having 1 million views today to having 100 the next day." No, I don't play any instruments, no, Mirage. I've never dabbled in music and with any serious degree. The most strict. Oh, well, that's why I don't use it, Ruben, because it's too like I've actually seen there are songs that they will like literally turn off the entire audio of your stuff if they're even played for a fifth of the time that they actually run for. So I've tried to stay away from using music for the most part because again it's too unstable. But I said people are like so willing to get you over everything now that they'll get upset over that kind of stuff. And the only way that you can really get past them actually trying to screw with you is if it's something where you play it for, let's say you have a, I don't know, 30-minute stream and you play a song for 3 minutes and your content is 90% just you speaking. They can't mess with it because it falls under fair use. But even then they still have songs that they put on a list of, hey, you play this, we're coming after you. So yeah, copyright is really ridiculous. And they don't even seem to get that the whole point of people playing those songs is because they like them. They want other people to hear them. A lot of times I have people ask, what song was this? I tell them so they can go and support the person who made it. But they want to have a parasitic relationship, so they can have at it. They're screwing themselves over. They do not mess with music copyright laws at all. Metallica. Man, we're gonna get. Someone actually said we're gonna get to a point where there's only like 5 or 4 songs you can even play on here. What was the other group, DMCA, that was doing where every time somebody played a song, they would mess with someone over it? Mm. I know. That's why I've tried to use those. So I didn't say there wasn't. I was just saying there's a lot of stuff that they like to screw with. Their copyright. I'm good. I'll just stay away from that stuff. But yeah, it like you look at anything, just all the different parameters. I did a version of Let's Impeached. Man, Namaraj, I'm trying to get to my point over there giggling in text. He has to inform us, notify us that he's laughing out loud because we wouldn't be able to tell if he didn't write it. But yeah, you look at any perimeter of life, and it just seems as if the more you give toward trying to get something, you get screwed over and then accused of not having tried hard enough or some crazy stuff. And like I've actually seen someone who applied to over 40 different establishments, heard back from 3 of them, got declined by each one of the 3 that responded, and then they were told that they were lazy and not looking for any work. Like it was so bad they actually had to keep a Google Doc of all the different places that they've applied to just to prove that they weren't sitting back and not applying anywhere. And I'm like, what idiot is going to think that someone who over and over again said they want to work, they want to go and do all this other stuff, who would believe that as that person continues to try apply these different places, they're only saying it and not doing it. It's the same thing with the chick stuff. You can talk to 90, 80, 100 different broads, and because of that sheer number alone, you get accused of 2 things. Not being appealing enough for one of them to have said yes because it's your fault that other people have their own set of biases and preferences and whatnot, or being accused of being gay. And it's like, what homosexual person would try to talk to dozens and dozens and dozens of broads for any particular reason relating to trying to go on a date? Same thing with the voice actor stuff. I told you when I did this other project, when I was trying to jumpstart it, this other one that is like a spinoff or whatever, the main thing I do, I spoke to over 20 different voice actors. I had one of them say they would do it, and then I asked them for their email, never heard anything back. I had one of them who I sat here for 4 days getting asked. I mean, it was like I was being interviewed for some high profile position. What's it about? Where will this be aired? How do you want the scripts? What does it look like? Done any work in the past? And I answered all these questions because again, the premise of this person will eventually relent and actually do the thing you want them to do. All of a sudden they abruptly stop answering. And I say, so do you intend on doing this? Oh no, I'm sorry. I realize I wasted your time, but good luck. And they even admitted in that, if you know, those weren't their exact words, but they even admitted that they made me jump through a bunch of hoops for nothing. But you look at that and you say to yourself, so wait a second. You can answer all the questions that these people have. You can edit all this stuff, do pretty much everything that is in your power because you don't want to voice every single thing yourself. You're trying to give other people the chance to do this stuff as well, and yet still get blamed when people don't want to do their much smaller part of the thing. But that's why I say I live in the twilight zone because it really feels like every single part of anything I do, the only person who gets blamed for it, no matter what the role of the other person was, is yours truly. And I've seen it happen to a lot of other people as well. But because I have my respective hand in so many different avenues, it tends to pile up and happen back to back. And no one thinks this is crazy. No one says, wait a second, if this person is willing to give these people extensions and say, hey, you can take a month off, just record these 3 because I won't get to that part anyway. And they still say no, they still don't do it. It's really his fault. I'm supposed to, like, in this case of some people, fly over to their respective states and show up with my fisticuffs and go, hey, you better record this. Like, no, that's not a realistic thing for me to do. They're on the other end of a computer screen. They've signed up for something voluntarily, and I'm trying to negotiate with whatever respective schedule they have to better increase the chances of them actually doing this stuff. And still somehow get blamed for when it doesn't get done. Because apparently I'm also, in addition to being, this powerful juggernaut, I'm also his brother, Professor X. So I'm supposed to use my telekinetic powers to force them to record stuff. Like, you will record script. It's the same thing with the chick stuff. It's like, I mean, I really wish I still had, in some cases, a lot of those weird comments. I got attacked over everything. I got attacked over the way I looked, the way I dressed, the way I spoke, what I was into. And like, these people really just on a collective scale try to convince me when they aren't, like, sympathizing with the position of, yeah, this chick stuff is really ridiculous and a lot of people are frustrated with it. Let's see. Okay, now Namarad said, I'm confused. What are we supposed to be recording? No, not you. I'm talking about this voice actor stuff. Oh, more and more superficial. But my point is they went after all kind of different things, and I said to myself, who the hell would want to change all of what they are on the off chance that some broad will accept them for playing a character that they aren't even actually, genuinely that person? And I said, when you look at the responses in a lot of those different comments, you have people who aren't into politics, who don't look the way I look, and they're getting the exact same responses. I gave the example of my best friend. This is a guy who doesn't engage with political stuff at all, and like never anything having to do with that. Still got the same kind of treatment. Not on here because they don't know what he looks like, but my point is, I've had many people who have different ways of doing things, and they get the same reception. I'm just really annoyed, is all I am. I don't want to be in any of these stupid groups, but I know that they're the different members of them try to label me as part of their teams because for some reason they need me to be their unofficial associate for some reason. I already said I don't participate in any of these activities, so they can have fun talking to themselves and sitting on forums and threads forever. But yeah, I don't see the and I guess what I think is so funny is I wish we could go back to the era of just saying this person doesn't believe this because of their objective position that this has not changed in the past, and it shows no sign of differences. Namaraj, with all due respect, every place I've been employed that said do not get involved with an eco worker. So that we're not even going to play that. Always says it's just a part of female nature. To be honest, you might have to play the game to get what you want. Well, we played the game for 7 years and got the exact same result each time, and I don't really understand the point of continuing something that shows no signs of progressing. Especially when these people change their minds every couple of days about everything. I mean, we literally have. I gave the example of a broad who went from getting turned on by being called, let's just say, some non-positive remarks to, oh my god, I don't like that anymore. So they're not really anyone to take seriously. Ruben says, I just realized that everyone from Professor X's family is awful. Yeah, that's how those. I mean, really, if we actually did have a list of the different mainstream top dog Marvel characters and DC characters, they usually, especially the Marvel ones, they usually have crappy. Um, if the relatives are living, they're not exactly that good. It's all part of their attempts to make drama and sell the narrative that the adoptive family that in the case of Professor X that he gets from the X-Men is much more suited for him than people he's actually related to. Okay, since when is wanting to start a family with abroad a game? Yeah, but like I said, Mark, they're not. They don't. The only time I've seen people actually get that in the modern era is when someone forgets to put on some rubber, and then that the end results come out of that. Megumi says, I like how, despite all the things you've been through with the trash in relationships, expect you to not show any feelings about it whatsoever, pretend that everything is fine. Well, because people like the fantasy of believing that something that is awful is good. So, for example, my work ethic, I think, is great. Um, I've given the example of being able to draw 60 images in a single day, um, being able to record a bunch of stuff back to back. But if people don't want to engage with that stuff, so if I draw this stuff out but can't edit it because I don't have lines from voice actors, goes to hell. I even gave the example of how we had the broad who remained nameless, who sat here and complimented my personality. Uh, was talking about how much of a joy it was to interact with me, and I said, if you can find all of these positive traits in how someone acts, then the only logical reason for why, and you live near them, the only logical reason for why you would say no would have to be the way they look. And it's not hard to deduce things like that, but because we live in an era of give the broad the benefit of the doubt slash a pass slash pretty much any type of easy way of getting out of taking responsibility for something that is not positive, um, you know, I have people who will still try to argue, oh, well, it might have been something else. Like, no, it wasn't. All right. Namarad says the internet is actually a terrible place to pick. Oh, I know. That's why I don't bother with it anymore. Especially when they participate in double speak, like the person who said 2 months ago, oh, I thought you were going to fly out to my city. It's like, why would I go to some random city in a state I don't even live in? Well, I don't know about that, Cortez. This game crap is only about 50 years old. Anyone? Okay, so last statements. Megumi says, yeah, I don't even bother wasting my time with it anymore. Further, final comments, positions, theories, words. We can smoke together and find some. Man, if I go to Michigan, I'll go there to see the Gerald Ford Library, not for any other purpose, or to bring some water to Flint. Not going to take what they say seriously. Yeah, pondering about dating is a waste of time. It happens or it doesn't. Yeah. If two people say we're going on a date, they go on a date. If one person says, "Hey, I want to date you," and the other one says, "Screw you," you're not attractive enough for me, then stays the exact same way. Okay, Ruben says he doesn't have anything left to say. As far as the smooth talking guy with tattoos that smokes cigarettes with Ig, it's WITG. And people type so quickly, and he almost had it correct. There was a letter right next to it. All right, so I'm glad I got Megumi's approval. He put his rubber stamp on it. So with all that being said, I'll do a stream on Saturday, another one on Sunday, another one on Monday, and I'll put some stuff up between Tuesday and Friday like usual. So thank you for participating. And like I said, if something is seeming to get worse and worse, don't let anyone on these websites try to convince you that it's magically going to get better. We don't deal in negative or positive. We deal in reality and objectivity and logic.